My name is Hilal Shmosam, and we are here on episode 2 of Live Leader, filming the Executive Leadership Forum. And thanks for joining us, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, mate.
Today we have 3 gentlemen that all sort of work in a different field, 2 of alike, and one, myself and Steven, in a completely different field. So we've got Nathan Birch from B.Invested, which is a property investment firm. Nathan has built a portfolio of over 200 properties, has retired himself from the workforce since the age of 24, which is pretty impressive, and has led over 100 staff nationally and continuously delivers results from the current staff he has. Thanks, Steven Sidorovski is from a legal firm called Zenith Legal. Is the founder of Zenith Legal and has employed over 10 staff and all starting from pretty much graduates, I would be comfortable in saying, moving to practicing lawyers. Joseph Asaf is the director of Ray White Commercial New South Wales. He is specialising in the asset classes of commercial property, of development sites specifically. His role is highly focused on productivity and driving results in a highly competitive service market. I can imagine his role would be more influencing the KPIs and results on everyday drivers and expecting his team to deliver quite highly. Today's episode is all about productivity and leading to drive results. What is that? It's essentially what we all as business owners want and need in our business. And it's one, productivity. And most importantly, we need to be able to drive results from our team.
Yep.
How we do that, I guess the watchers and the viewers that are going to be here today and that are watching are going to learn a little bit how we all individually do it within our own businesses.
Yep.
I know how I do it or try to do it. And we're going to learn a little more about what helps CEOs as ourselves and leaders and executive leaders drive results from the teams we have. And most importantly, get them to deliver as much results as possible. So moving into Nathan Birch can respond on question number 1.
Yeah.
So Nathan, tell me a little about sort of your business first and how you have led your team to essentially deliver results in your own unique way.
Yeah. I guess as a business, like when I first started B.Invested a decade ago now, I quit my job in the GFC, in the middle of the GFC, and started the business using different sort of methods at the time. YouTube, no one knew what YouTube or Facebook was back in the day, and then grew it into a basket of different brands, which is over a dozen different companies that we have as a part of the group now. Looking at building a business, I wasn't setting out to become a business person. It sort of just happened, and I think it's important when building a business and building a team. There's a lot of things that I've learned over the last decade, which I didn't sign up for when I first started the business. And the things that I did sign up for, sort of smashed some goals because I had clear direction and path into what I wanted to achieve. And I think it's important that you plan a lot when building a business, having clear and defined goals, just like a journey. If you're traveling somewhere, a lot of people say you just fly there or you just drive there.
Yeah, they think it's that.
Exactly.
That easy.
Reality of it is, if we were talking about going to Perth today, how would you get there? Right? People would just go, you'd fly, right? Reality of it is, you need to work out where's Perth and where are we and what modes of transport and what options do we have in order to get there. So is it a plane? Is it a car? Is it whatever? Looking at, building a business, you've had to use different modes of transport along the way, whether it be, the Uber to the airport
and in this case, it's our people. It's leading to drive.
Exactly.
To get them to drive results. And how have you essentially led your people to be able to, you own over 200 properties, right?
Yeah.
And I'm assuming not just leading your own people to drive those results. You've got people like Steven who may have had to do 200 odd sets of paperwork to essentially sign these 200 properties off. And how are you getting these guys to sort of perform for you at a level where it's not stressing you out and it's still quite relevant into how much of your energy is being put into to do this sort of stuff?
I think I was reading the other day, I saw this quote, could be a little bit wrong verbatim wise, but it was something about if you have everybody leading in the same direction on the same path, you can dominate any market in any marketplace with any environment by having everybody on board with the same vision. I think the vision needs to be strong to start with. With Steve, I remember Steve when he, maybe 10 years ago, 12 years ago, we met, and we were working on some properties, and I've used lots of lawyers over the years when it comes to property transactions, and I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly, and making sure that you've got the right team around you that understand your goals, understand your vision, and it can help deliver the result in line with what you're trying to achieve is important. So having clarity on that front and making sure you've got the right people, because if you have the wrong people, when I first started business, I didn't have grey hair. I had a face full of pimples. Now I've got a face full of grey hair, right?
You're looking good, mate.
Thanks, mate.
Steve, in your role, I guess you see a lot of graduates, and in today's society, we hear, I mean, I know I experience it, but we sort of have it a little harder. That the people we employ are millennials, and what comes with that is sometimes they're overprivileged, some very likely that they're underprivileged, but the workforce and the work ethic that comes with millennials straight out of university or graduates, where you may see a lot of that from, has that affected business morals, culture, fit, everything within the business that you run? So tell me a little bit about how you sort of transact them from a graduate to a fully pledged practicing lawyer, and what sort of duration do you see that usually takes?
Sure. So obviously it depends on, every person is different. I've noticed that with graduates that are coming out of university and out of law school, they come in and they've got an idea of what they think the industry is going to be like, because they've done a lot of theory. And when you come into practice, there's a whole new set of skills that you need to have. So as an employer, it's our job to obviously nurture them and teach them these new skills. So what I'm finding is with graduates that are coming in new to the workforce, if you can actually give them a purpose and they have an understanding of what they're doing and why they're doing, they tend to perform better, rather than coming in, you giving them a whole list of what they need to do. They don't know why they're doing it, but they're just doing it because they've been told to do it. I've noticed that doesn't actually help them perform. Whereas if you do go through and explain the reasons why, give them a bit of, like I said, a bit of purpose to what they're doing, they feel better about what they're doing.
I guess there's a misconception between performance and productivity, especially from the employee's perspective. Whereas a business owner, productivity is, how the train is, all four wheels, or however many wheels are on a train, probably more than four, all turn succinct, so to speak. Whereas performance from the employee's perspective is purely driven about their own performance, where we've got to look at productivity as a whole team performing at the same pace, at the same level, essentially at the same playing field. I guess, what are the key points that you have? I mean, everybody in the room has noticed that you have some weak players, very likely, in every business, but then you have some strong players, and you want to find that balance. Where do you find that balance fits? And I know with Joe, you sell high profile properties. I can imagine the pressure that's usually put on some of your staff and yourself to try and sell this in such a market that we're in at the moment. How are you sort of managing your people? And I know, good culture, good fit, and loyalty to yourself from your team is a huge part of it. How do you get people to get there within your business model?
Look, our industry is very highly relationship based, and I think what's very important, and also being in a service industry, is guiding and mentoring. But one thing that I've found to be able to grow and go to the next level is to be able to delegate and to assign tasks.
Yeah, and a lot of people forget that they need to do that.
Yeah. It's just assigning those tasks that can be delegated and delegating those tasks to the people to actually...
Do you find that by delegating and assigning people to do specific things, you are actually empowering them?
Yes.
And sometimes someone who may be a junior may not have had that empowerment either in their past role. So I guess you're saying, as a leader, delegating and empowering your people is a huge part of driving productivity and performance.
And giving them that responsibility and allowing them to have ownership on that task to complete it.
Yeah.
I think also understanding your team. One thing that I'm always blessed on is that, there's lots of places out there in the country for people to work for that don't have to work for me. They can work anywhere. We get 24 hours in the day. Out of that, 8 of them you're probably sleeping. 8 of them you're probably brushing your teeth, taking the kids to school, whatever the case may be. And the other 8 is your prime amount of time in your day that you're working in an environment. So I realise that I see my staff sometimes more than they see their kids or their spouses or whatever. So it's important to, respect that as well and make sure that they're achieving their own personal goals.
We don't realise how much time we actually spend in our workforce with our colleagues versus what we do at home.
Yeah.
And with that, I guess it's all educational. Everything we do, whether it's from the morning to the afternoon or throughout a year, we're always learning more about each other, more about each other's culture and what we like, what we don't like, when we're stressed and when we're not. And I think a really good, productive and high delivering team is one that I guess gets to see all those phases of each other, and only by being with each other for so long, but then respect that.
Yeah.
Respect that, what, he may not be having a great day today. How about I just do things that I know it's going to make a little bit easier for them. But not only from the employee's perspective to the executive, it's also very much from our side. We need to know when our staff aren't feeling the best or when they're not at their strongest point in that day, because to continuously have our teams delivering high results and driving high results, we've got to be able to see them at their best and know when they're not at their best.
I think the actual work culture is actually changing. A lot of employers are providing their staff flexibility, working from home. It's really able to give these high-performing staff their right environment to perform at their best ability.
Yeah.
Well, what's your take? I'm more interested to know about how we turn a graduate into a practicing lawyer. I want to hear from Steven. Tell me a little bit about the current business that you're in now and sort of what kind of team that you have in place at the moment.
Okay. So at the moment, we've got several practicing solicitors, and then we've got admin staff, and we've got a uni student. So essentially, in answering your question, how do you go from a uni graduate to a solicitor? I can speak from my own experience, having gone through that myself. And personally, when I went through that, I was kind of like thrown in the deep end, and I was either going to sink or swim. So that approach actually worked really well for me. I think you need to assess each individual person and what their capacity is and their capabilities are, and work to their strengths. So not everybody is going to be great at certain aspects of the job, and I think working at your employees' strengths is what's going to help them to progress and be productive, and it's also going to help you. So if you can have that open forum, if you like, with them, and you can sort of say, okay, do you need help with this area? Let's try and do this. Or you're doing really well at this, I'll let you focus on that. Because in law now, in the industry, specialisation is key. People that specialise in a certain area tend to do better at their job, rather than when we used to have a general practitioner that did everything. So they knew a little bit about everything, but they didn't know a lot about anything.
It's like us in film. In the past, you've been the director, the producer, the editor, the cinematographer, and you find yourself doing many roles, versus now when you have core focus on something. I know that personally, if I need to do something and have it finished, core focus, there is nothing like really focusing on the one task that you really excel at. And I guess results and driving results from people isn't just so much about productivity or performance like we have mentioned before. I think it's good to see that we're able to drive results by, a result could be that just the employee is comfortable in their workspace. A result could be that they actually turn up to work. And the result could be that, they stick in the hours when it's necessary. Yeah. I guess, what do you find and how do you sort of get that sort of response from your staff when it's required? And what do you do on the day-to-day to achieve that?
Yeah, so the interesting thing, like in 2019, one of my goals was wanted to be more committed to everything that I was doing. So this year, I actually made it one of my goals not to have a day off. So every day I've worked this year, even my birthday, I went and had like a
I remember that. I've seen the posts.
Yeah.
Digging up things on a Sunday, doing deals on a Monday.
Everything, right? And a lot of 20-hour days this year. And, I felt like, at some point you can become stale in your business. There's like phases that you can go through, areas that you need to do breakthrough on. And I realised that like when you hop in that trench and your staff are like, wow, like my boss is doing it. It's like, you know, I see bosses out there that are like, you know, you better do this and, you know, all that sort of stuff. And it kind of feels like a concentration camp where people are like,
Yeah,
you know,
it's very common.
Yeah.
I guess businesses are more focused on the bottom line.
Yeah.
Very many businesses are focused on the bottom line and not so much the line that's physically right in front of you, and that's the front line. It's your people.
Exactly. You're only as good as the people that you've got around you.
Exactly. And in saying that, I think it's not only your staff, it's your mentors, it's your business partners, it's your associates who, people like you guys in property and people like Steven in legal, I guess, as executives, it's having those kinds of the right key people around you is extremely important.
It's all about network.
Yeah. On the topic of network, what do you sort of find in your, I mean, you and Nathan are both in the property game, and Nathan's more on the investment firm who sort of is the buyer from you. How is it that you would typically network to find new clientele so that your staff has something to deliver results, has someone to deliver results through? Again, you know, for instance, to find people like Nathan to buy properties from.
I find it's all about the point of difference. How can you add value? A lot of people have the title of a commercial real estate agent, but not every commercial real estate agent is successful. I think you have to have that point of difference. How can you add value? How can you help your client achieve their financial goals and other goals at that point?
Yeah.
Even in making their whole transaction seamless. I remember having a conversation with Joseph over the phone, and he said to me, I'm going out to see a client. It was about 7 o'clock at night. I'm thinking, where are you going? It's 7 o'clock. He goes, yeah, I'm driving out to Hornsby. I go, but you're like this suburb commercial, and it's, you know, this is booming out here. He said, yeah, I'm going out to see a client. It's part of what I do to ensure that I'm keeping them happy. But most importantly, it suits them at their time to essentially drive results. So I see that as something that staff and employees should sort of look at and say, okay, well, should I be doing that, and how often should I be doing that? But most importantly, why do you do that?
Look, the typical 9 to 5 job, I believe, doesn't exist anymore. I personally believe you've always got to be available for your clients.
Yeah.
And Steve, you know, as a lawyer, you might get a call on a Saturday from a client who's maybe attended an auction transaction and just been successful and purchased the property, or has a legal question, or they're in a position. So availability is key.
Yeah.
It really is. And that goes back to building that relationship, that network around you, to be able to have that support and to be able to be efficient in responding.
Yeah.
How do you sort of push that through so that resonates with your team to sort of do the same thing, so that, you know, if you've got 5 people in your team or 10 and they're all got to go out to see someone on a Saturday afternoon?
Look, I think it comes down to leading by example. I think results, like seeing the results there, I think if that's not your biggest drive, I don't know whatever will be.
Well, on the topic of leading by example, that's a crucial one, because I guess as leaders, you say, you know, you want your staff to learn something new. You might have a meeting in the boardroom and say, tomorrow we're going to start something new, and I want everyone to know this tomorrow. And leading by example doesn't work. And I think I've found that I've been in this game long enough to know that dictating education doesn't work. I think leading by example and educating yourself from the top is a huge benefit to allow your team to be more productive through actually seeing that you need to also learn. And it's not also about knowing everything. So I guess leading by example is also something that I hold close to my heart, to sort of learn from example from your own teams at the same time. And I guess if it's a two-way thing between yourself and your teams, then they start to do what you do, but you also start to do what they do, and it's this great collaboration, and everyone's just sort of succinct and doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So I guess on that, what do we call results today? Today's topic is leading and driving by and driving results. Yeah. What is the hardest factor to drive a result from an employee?
I think the most important part of it is making sure that they share that vision, that they understand where are we travelling to. And I see so often in businesses that isn't clear, and there can be, misdirection, misguidance, and a level of complacency sometime in the business where it's like other staff can do that, and it's like you have to be in the trench. Just on the real estate side of things, I've got a residential property management firm that I run. It's like a real estate office for rentals, and from that, like, I don't have to do it, but there's times where I've helped my staff. I've gone out on a Saturday and done the open homes for rental properties in the back of Mount Druitt and all those areas, and it's like those things you need to hop in the trenches and understand it yourself. Like, if you don't understand your business, just back on what
there's
you're
a
saying.
quote actually that I could really resonate to. It goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think that's really, really relevant in this conversation that we're having now, and it just goes back to what we're saying.
That's very true. Going far is actually the next topic on this discussion, and it's about driving results from your team that are further away from your reach, and it goes back to maybe a national team, or going back to team members that you work with that are in a national space. Do we find that every state itself holds a type of employee? Do we have different cultures? I mean, not cultures as in ethnic cultures. Do we have different working ethics and different working cultures available, or that we see happen in different states? I know that we employ staff, mostly our head office is in Sydney, but we've got crewing that are available nationwide.
Yeah.
And I know at the top of Darwin, it's a lot harder to get someone to go out on a job in a few hours than it is in Melbourne. I think they're a little bit more relaxed up there, and same with Perth. Wait a while, WA. But overall, what do you guys find in terms of staffing around different states?
Yeah, looking at the culture, it is very different. Like, I've got a large office on the Gold Coast. I've got dozens of staff up there, and it's a very different sort of environment than it is here in Sydney, from a finance company, for example. But I think it's important to be able to mirror and work with those teams. Not, when I go up there to the Gold Coast to see my team, I'm mirroring the team. I'm with the team. I'm doing.
You actually do much work when you go up to the Gold Coast?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. always hustling.
I see Nathan just out there surfing.
No, I've got my thongs on every day.
Well, driving culture through your national teams. How is that effective? How is that possible? I don't know. You don't want to be doing 4 conferences a year.
Yeah.
It can't be cheap.
Yeah.
So is that something through standard operating procedures that you guys run through every day, every month, or do you guys do monthly meetings through video conferencing?
Yeah. For my staff that are in a state, I think it's important to have standard operating procedures across national businesses, because I have seen at different times where, for example, I've got 2 of the same business in 2 different states, and one runs totally opposite, and it's not in line with the company values and not in line with the company business. So then it's important to, make sure that you attend to that as soon as you can. Otherwise, you've got, different operations running. You can't keep control of it either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It gets harder the bigger you grow.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a main problem that everybody, I guess, faces.
Yeah.
The next thing is essentially productivity through your team, but with new clients. I know that when we have new clients coming on board, the productivity towards that client is actually more focused on than past clients, which is a good thing, but not always a great thing when you're growing at a rapid pace. Most importantly, it's about how we are now looking at achieving the most out of every staff member, but still being able to say, okay, we've got a new client on, instead of giving them 60% and throwing 40% off to everybody else that's in the that you manage. How do you just divide that whole number and then just give them what they actually deserve, because you're so focused on ensuring that you're not getting anything wrong?
Yeah.
I know from us it's about systemizing a lot of things. I don't know how you guys would do it, but what happens with us is that we sign up a new client, everybody else that is managed by that specific employee gets a little less attention for that first month or so. And then what we found is if we systemize what needs to be done, we can ensure that WR whips are done at the right time, at the right pace, and everything is scheduled.
Yeah.
It all seems to flow nicely. Do you have that sort of employee versus new buyer journey issue? I guess you might see it a lot where you've got many buyers that you, Joe, might deal with.
Yep.
How are you sort of acclimatizing your team to
We've
buyers?
got strict systems and procedures. So we have a protocol that is to be followed, and we obviously adhere to it from the top, and everyone's to follow it just to ensure that the correct procedures and the formalities are completed.
With your buyer, I can imagine your type of buyer that is looking to say buy a specific property that you're selling. You're not just going to have one or two buyers. You're going to have
That's correct. There's multiple buyers. It's about balancing and servicing them.
Yeah.
Because if they don't purchase that one property, there's going to be other opportunities.
And how do you ensure that your team is actually staying as productive with them while still selling 10 other properties?
Look, supporting them, providing the right resources around them, assisting them. We currently outsource to virtual assistants offshore.
How is that? Everybody's telling me to get into that. Does it work?
We find it very effective.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of people that, look, this day and age, when you buy a product online, you can actually track the delivery and the status of your product. For a product that you may have a small value under $100, if you're transacting a commercial property in over 10, 15, 20 million, you don't think that it's required, or people want to know every step of the way what's happening. So we're ensuring that when an inquiry comes through on a property, they're getting a response within 10 minutes. They're getting the satisfactory information that they want to make an educated decision, because if not, they're going to go to the next property. And there's always going to be multiple properties, and you just have to stay just relative and stay ahead of time and just move with the time.
It is all time management. I guess Steven would have the same problem where he's sort of dealing with the same amount of, I guess, your customer will end up being his customer. So you've almost balanced out exactly the same amount of customer base. How are you sort of staying on top, and how are you getting your team to stay productive and to stay on top? I know with us, we have been utilizing new systems, and again, going back to, we have some millennials, we have a few people who are a little bit more, who know the industry a little better. But with us, I think systemizing everything and using software and platform has changed our business enormously. I guess 5 or 6 years ago, we could break 10 videos a month and we would be bummed. We would be tired, we'd be stressed. We would not know what we're up to, where we're going, and what's next. Now we can produce over 200 videos a month and be quite comfortable and know where we're at. And that's all through systems and processes and actually software platforms, using automations, using key drivers to help us grow the business. And I guess without that, there was no chance in the world that we could ever run our business the way we needed to. And why I bring that up is it's almost the same as managing your customer. For us, that's how we manage our customer. We very rarely send emails out anymore. It's all done through our platform. One thing that I'm actually quite proud of is that our phone doesn't ring in this office. Very, very rarely. I bet now that I've said it, the phone will ring. But we have minimized communication and essentially time wasted to improve productivity through utilizing platforms and software that can help us grow our business within our specific departments. Do you guys have specific softwares other than CRMs that you use to essentially manage all the deals and all the properties and all the teams and all your properties? From one that is selling properties, one that is owning. How the bloody hell do you manage 200 properties? That's the question. I think that grows for us. It's like producing 200 videos every month. You've got to manage and check that you've got 200 rents coming in. You've got to ensure that 200 contracts are signed, and you've got to sell, so to speak, 200. Let's just use 200 as a number. How is everyone managing those sorts of numbers within their businesses and essentially ensuring that they are leading their business to be able to drive results through processes and software?
Yeah. I'm just going to go back on the last topic about like the clients. A lot of people don't realise that their staff are like clients as well. So you need to be nurturing your staff. You need to be nurturing those staff. And in relation to those key people that you've got in your business, everybody has a different skill set. I've got some people that are very eye for detail, very shy, don't want to be front-facing or whatever, but they're very good at sweeping up the other person that doesn't have the eye for detail. So it's important to identify who in the business and organisation to take after what sort of task. So it's something I had in mind.
I think on that, It's also about, again, going back to what I was saying, is how do you get them all to work in sync? If you are a new musician going into a band that you are just joining, you've got your own unique style of playing, but to ensure that you can play this with this band, they've been doing it for 5 years or so. I think my take on it is don't go in there beating your drum saying you don't want to change it. It's more about stop and listen to the music that's being played around you. Hear it play, let it sink in, and then slowly not change your ways, but blend your ways into playing that instrument so that it flows with that culture of that business or that musician or whatever it is. And I think that's what can make those wheels on that train all turn at the same time versus,
all four of them.
Yeah, well, you've got someone playing drums and you've got someone playing the guitar, and then the drummer just wants to beat harder, and you can't bloody hear the drum, the guitar, because one is playing at his own pace. Building a culture that can all work together.
You need to be adaptable to growth, adaptable to change, all that.
And I guess as leaders, that is something that we can't take our eye off the ball ever, regardless of how busy we are. And I know for myself, the last 3 months have been enormous for us. So I could barely say, I think I've probably got a few thumbs down from a few people in here saying, "Oh, you're not true to your word," but they know I have been prior, and it will be after our crazy period. But I guess knowing that that's always front of mind, to know that, hey, don't drop the ball when it comes to ensuring your team is all in line in terms of them beating at the same drum, at the same tune, at the same rhythm, and at the same volume, so to speak, and that really resonates.
And I think also, like, as your business grows as well, if you do take your eye off the ball, you have a lot more to risk as you're growing. Like, as you're first starting a business, you don't have that much to risk. You're very energetic and you can take risks and all that. But as you grow, any little thing that goes wrong could stuff up everything that you've got.
It's a lot easier to break something that's much bigger and fragile than it is when you're a small business and you can sweep a lot of things under the rug.
Exactly. And the culture, like having the rotten egg inside the team or whatever, it's important to make sure you've got everybody working together as a collective rather than someone going off here being a rogue, because that can really the rest of the team could follow.
Did anyone notice how Nathan switched that last question about not answering it pretty much when I said, how do you manage 200 properties? And we were getting onto the software and how we manage all these properties. And he just quickly went back.
I'll go back to it.
Go back to it.
Okay.
I want to know how we all manage multiple things at once, and how do you put systems in place or softwares or automations in place to allow your teams to do that so that you can focus more on growing?
So for me, like getting back to something I said beforehand, having the right people around you, having the right team is important. I've had really bad property managers out there over the years. I ended up building a property management business so I can control from the ground zero how everything ran on that front. I've seen property managers. There was one recently, probably about 9 months, a year ago, before I sent the property management business national, where a property wasn't insured. The agent had been paying the insurance, decided not to pay the insurance. The house burnt down, and now I've got a house that's burnt down without insurance.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's got to hurt.
It does hurt, but it's all right.
Does that property manager not have professional indemnity? That, how do you also manage to know if your properties actually all have professional indemnity covered by the people that you employ?
And that's the thing. So we're in the process of suing that real estate agent. If they're watching, we're coming to collect, right? But things do go wrong. Things break up sometimes. Yeah. And, over 200 properties, touch wood, systems and processes haven't failed me.
Until now.
Someone had been trusted to do so. And it's important to try and continuously adapt and grow that. So a lot of my businesses, like I've got over a dozen brands, these have been created out of the need to have something better within the marketplace. If I need it, then other people are going to need it as well. So there was like a software that I created, which is like MYOB or Zero for property investors, where it's like a CRM and a accounting software where it gets entered in via a virtual bookkeeper. So I don't have any virtual staff. Apart from
is there a tab in there that lets you know if all your properties are insured?
Yeah, there is actually. There is.
Please make sure that there is one there.
That's been added.
Well, Stephen, how do you sort of manage all your staff, and all your clients at the same time? And I can imagine that your desks and your offices in a legal firm, I don't know why, but this picture in my head just also is always there, of piles of paper. Is that really true to word, or is that just something you see in movies? And how do you manage all that documentation?
Yeah, sure. So it is still a reality in law firms. We are trying to go paperless if we can, but it's not going to happen for a while. But essentially, what you need to do, obviously in any business, you've got busy times and you've got quiet times. So when it gets really busy, obviously you've got to be able to prioritize and you've got to be able to delegate. So, and your staff need to be able to do that as well. So if I'm delegating to the law graduate, and then if they're swamped because I just go past and dump files on their desk and say, get all this done, needs to be done today, they can then delegate to an admin staff if there's things there that they know.
And are you using software for that? I know there is a couple of that I personally know of, and I think one is called Leap and the other is Action Step and a few others. Do you guys use any sort of software that does help you bring on more work and be more productive?
Yeah, so Leap, we use Leap Legal software, so it's a practice management program. It does help minimise our work insofar as it alleviates repetition and it gets the work done, I suppose, more efficiently. As far as, bringing leads in and things like that, there is software available. I'm sort of a little bit more old school where I'd want to go out and get the work and then, my staff concentrates on doing the work and I'm trying to get new leads in. But there's definitely software available, and Leap has that, and another practice management software has that, where you can actually put all your leads in. And I think Nathan uses Salesforce.
Yeah, I use Salesforce and Marketo. So Marketo actually follows around the customer cycle and then leads it back into the back end of Salesforce. So we spent hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in getting that right and having that software in the business, because we've got a very large database. And I feel that the business that I'm in, I always say to people, I'm an investment firm, but I invest in data, because data is the crucial part, having those people and having that relationship with them.
Well, the data it's also the life cycle of their journey. That database that you got, they could have bought a property 10 years ago, but they could be looking today, so it's always reaching them.
They might need a will, they might need a property management, they might want to sell it.
Again, with Joseph, what systems are in place for you to ensure that you sort of achieve this?
Look, processes, being able to delegate, but one thing I'm a firm believer of is share your vision with your team around you and work together towards that common vision. Have the resources and the capacity to actually be able to handle if you are to grow towards that vision. One thing that I've seen happen a lot of times is businesses have this vision where they want to grow so big, so they don't hire the staff and train them the correct way. They hire them when they need them and it's like an elastic band. You've stretched it so far, then they hire staff when the elastic band is actually highly stretched. Hire the staff beforehand, nurture them, grow with them, so you can actually...
Absolutely. Nurturing your team around you.
So you can actually handle the capacity and the capabilities, and then everything is streamlined throughout it, and it doesn't become a painful process. A lot of businesses hire when they need it, which I believe is incorrect.
Look, last episode I spoke on attitude, hiring for attitude versus skill, and I'm very much higher for skill, not so much for attitude. But every now and then, if you could get someone who is semi-skilled to a degree where you then nurture their attitude towards your business, it sort of they sort of hold on and they actually perform 10 times better. I know that if we only employ people that we know that can add value to the business and add value to my productivity and my results as business owner, they can also teach me a few things along the way. There's no way I'm going to employ someone who can't teach me anything. I guess that's just the way I do things, but nurturing someone is absolute key. You said that and it hit the nail on the head, because we expect results in month 1, month 2, month 3, and sometimes month 5, 6 or 7, whatever it is. But results only come when everything is flowing properly, and it's the culture of the business. It's the training that's involved.
Where everything's aligned, I believe. Everything has to be aligned.
Yeah, and I guess you see the best results from people once they have nurtured themselves after being nurtured for so long. They sort of feel that they want to give back because they've learned enough in the business, and now they're ready to go the next step because you've given them that time. And too many times I see businesses hire and fire too soon and too often. And I guess with that comes stress to the executives and the leaders who are involved in that. It kills productivity, results are out of the window, and your targets and your deadlines are gone now because you have to go down the process of hiring again and potentially firing.
and the staff, like the training of those staff, whilst they're being trained, you've got someone training someone, so you're paying a wage and they're taking the eye off the ball on their job.
Double loss.
Yeah.
And with us, for us, it's, we have a ton of standard operating procedures. I could comfortably say 5 years ago we had none. Everything that ran in this company was what came out of my head.
Yeah.
And I started to see that it was taking too long. It was taking too much of my time. And the only way that we were able to move forward, and I know 99% of the businesses out there have standard operating procedures and policies in place, and you can see exactly why they work. But how do we keep our people motivated and engaged to follow those procedures? What are we doing? What are you guys doing here to ensure that your people continuously follow? I know.
Look, you have to constantly refine them, ask for their input.
Tell me about you. So you're with a much larger corporation. Ray White Commercial is also part of the Ray White Group. Hundreds, if not thousands, of employees. How do we ensure, and how do you guys ensure that everybody knows a new method that is being put into place? How often are you relooking at standard operating procedures?
We stay relevant. Being a larger organisation, we're constantly at the forefront of technology and change. We take the advice of other franchisees who've implemented it. We ask for their opinions. We have the conferences which enables other leaders to actually come together to share ideas, to actually grow together on what's working in their business, what's not working, to actually find a resolution.
So it's continual growth.
Continual growth.
How, once you have implemented that new idea that you learned from someone at a conference and you implement that into your business, how are you rolling that out within your business? I guess, are you running mini conferences for your own team? Are you putting it into a standard operating procedure and alerting your team every month about it?
We're implementing it and monitoring its response and the success of it. We give it a go. We're open to change.
And then a new staff member comes on. How do you get that message to them? They run through the SOP system, or it's now embedded into training?
It's embedded into training, and I think what's most important is what happens when you're not around. And if your other staff believe in it, and it's contagious, they'll sort of embed it into the new staff.
Do you find the same happens with your grads? That do they take the information in from SOPs? I know when I was young, SOP was like, whatever, I know what I've got to do. How are you getting millennials, so to speak, to understand these standard operating procedures and to follow them every day?
It's hard to motivate staff. It's hard to get the right staff to start with. Once you have the right staff and if they've got the right attitude, like you said, then it's easy to motivate them because they've got a purpose, they've got a goal and a vision of where they want to be. If you've got a staff member that's just there watching the clock until it turns 5 o'clock, then it's not really going to work. So it is difficult to motivate staff, but you have to follow the procedures, and not the same method works on every staff member. So I've had staff members in the past where you'll give them a warning and then things miraculously get better. Other times you have several warnings and you can be doing whatever you need to do and they're still not getting the message. So every person's different. There's no one method that's going to work on everybody, and I think you need to see what works with individual staff members. Someone will be motivated by incentive, someone will be motivated by flexibility. So it's whatever works, that's what you do.
We've recently introduced something called Confessions that happens on a Monday, every Monday in this business, and it's about letting the employee and the staff member sort of say, hey, I stuffed up on this particular thing last week, and that specific thing sort of escalated to this and whatever it was. So what we found is that when we are able to say, okay, we know that we've made that error mentally, it helps motivate not to ever make that error again because you've sort of confessed to doing it, and it's sort of embedded in your mind to say, I don't want to do that again. I know I'd done it last time. I said it to everybody at the table that what I had done was, not right. But it's not about reprimanding so much. It's more about being accepting of knowing and letting the team know that, hey, it's okay to make mistakes. Yeah. But if you voice them and you verbally voice them, it's no longer sitting inside. It's at the table. And we all know that you've made the mistake, and instead of everyone thinking, oh, he did that last week and did that before. We all know now it's there. If it happens again, we run a point system where we drop points for or for sort of making mistakes, or we allocate points for doing good. And then, there's a reprimand that when you get to minus 10 points, or there's a reward when you get to plus 10. So that's how we are starting and trying, hopefully. Hope it works, guys, to motivate our team. And I guess motivating is one thing, but it's also ensuring that we're still productive. And to say that, for us, productivity is to ensure that we send the video out and we send it out once, and possibly with a revision from a client's eye, they may see something a little different. They may have a different vision for the content. We want to reduce that, and then it helps with our productivity. So when an error is made in a video, it's not so much the client's vision, it's an internal error, which happens in every business. And what we've done is we've done confessions, and it's sort of reduced that. It's slowly reducing how many times someone makes that same error. And then when there's no errors and the client is happy, then you get the reward. You get the additional point. And the reward could be supportive to what you were saying, is that sometimes people might want different flexible time. Some people want itemized things. Some people want a new computer, whatever it is. They get to choose and they get to pick. So what is it that, other than what we've spoken about, is driving productivity in your business?
Backing up what like Steve said, I think it's important, everybody's different. Everyone has different goals, right? I've got younger staff. I've got more older staff. Some of the older staff may not be as moldable to new ideas and new sort of changes that are happening out there. And some of them, everyone's position is different. So trying to find the key motivation, understanding their goals so you can create sort of a win-win outcome is crucial. So some of the things that are in our office recently, we've re-streamlined our sales team, created new sales processes in there, onboarding processes. You're mentioning beforehand about how do you make the difference between the new clients and the old clients. There's KPIs that are in place for nurturing old clients, because it's more crucial to nurture an old client. They're already doing business with you, so you can work with them better.
That is a common mishap. I guess what I was saying earlier on is that we focus a lot on putting a lot of the efforts towards new clients, because we want to keep them, we want to retain them. Yeah, and it's crucially important not to forget your old clients, because actually everyone's field in here, return business is the easiest business, right? It's the most rewarding business, and your reputation's on the line if you can't keep them on. So with that, I guess we can wrap up. In summary, we have been covering the episode of productivity and leading to drive results, and we hope that everybody watching has learned something, and if not, sort of seen the insight of how we do things specifically in our own businesses. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining us,
Thank you for having
hopefully
us.
we'll see you next time.
Thank you.